to my kings, queens, and in-betweens. I'm Valerie, and welcome to my channel, The Bookish Valkyrie. So today I am doing a recommendation video for anybody who is participating in the Trans Rights Readathon for this year. It is from the 22nd through the 29th of March, and for anyone who just wants recommendations for trans books. And I am keeping my definition of a trans book fairly wide, partly because authors don't owe us their identity. If they are openly trans, awesome. If they just include trans characters in their books, I am going to count that as a trans read, up to and including like a best friend, a love interest. It doesn't have to be the main character. Although the majority of these are main characters, or the authors are openly trans or non-binary. So I am going to I was going to try to organize this, but I have 2 stacks that are taller than me and a few items that I don't have physical copies of, but I do have on ebook or audiobook. So I've got a lot to get through and trying to figure out an organization system. I'm a little too much of a chaos gremlin to manage that. All right, so we're just gonna start with the top of my pile. So first up, I have A Lady for a Duke by Alexis Hall. This does have a trans woman as the main character. She fakes her own death. Am I going to really do a description for all of these? I don't know. Maybe. We're just gonna chaos gremlin our way through this. Okay. So she fakes her own death during war times so that she can live her life as her actual self. But then she shows up back in society, and her best friend, because she has faked her own death and is now living as herself and not in the format that her best friend would recognize her. She finds herself in a romance with a man who has the best chance of recognizing her from her previous life. That's really all I know about it, because I have not read this yet. Next up, A Long Way to a Small Angry Planet by Becky Chambers. This is a queer norm science fiction reality where gender is many faceted and no one blinks an eye at it because queer norms. And this is a cozy space opera and a wonderful place to dip your toes in if sci-fi isn't really your thing, but you're kind of interested. I would definitely start with something like this. It's one of my favorites. Next up, I have Nick and Charlie by Alice Oseman. This is a short story that goes with the Heartstopper series, but instead of being a graphic novel, it is a short story with some pictures in it. It's really cute. I very much enjoyed it. If you have read all of the Heartstopper graphic novels, but you still want more Nick and Charlie, this is a great place to go. And Alice Oseman includes non-binary and trans characters in their books, and Alice Oseman is non-binary as well. And then I have Mooncakes, which is by Wendy Zhu and Suzanne Walker. This includes a trans character, and it's gorgeous. And it's a fun little paranormal touch of romance standalone graphic novel. I wish that it wasn't a standalone. I would love to get another volume of this. But it's great, it's fantastic, and if you are looking for a graphic novel that features a trans character and is from an Asian author, I believe that's one of the squares or one of the challenge options for the trans rights readathon bingo board, and it would satisfy one of the prompts in the reading challenge on the story graph challenge. I should know these things, but I don't. I'm a chaos gremlin, but I will absolutely include the link to the Trans Rights Readathon sign up, and all of their challenges and bingo boards and graphics are available there. And then this was my favorite manga series and my favorite reads for my favorite books for the year, for last year, and that is Boys Run the Riot by Kato Gaku. Kato Gaku is a trans mask author, and the main character, one of the main characters, is a trans person, is a trans guy, and I can't even, I don't know. I loved this series. If you have not read it yet, you really should pick it up. And it would be a great quick read if you are raising money for however many books, based off of however many books you get through during the readathon. I know a lot of creators are doing that, or they did last year at least. I really don't know how people are going about their participation this year. I don't feel like I have a large enough reach to really do a donation drive. I mean, I haven't even hit like 50 subscribers yet, but that's neither here or there. Basically, instead of doing a drive, I will be reading and posting and talking about on all of my platforms the readathon and the books that I am reading for it, and any recommendations I have for it. Basically, this video is just me going through my entire library of trans reads. So I'm also going to be donating. I will probably donate to a few different organizations locally, and I'll link those below. And whenever I see somebody's donation drive, I will probably donate there as well, as much as I can. The two local organizations that I plan to definitely contribute to are Cheer SLC, which is a transgender children's book drive. You can either donate books directly, or you can go to one of their partners under the Umbrella Bookstore, and they have a shelf that you can purchase books from, and they will donate 5% of the purchase to Cheer SLC. Or you can just donate money directly to Cheer SLC. I plan on donating money directly and also purchasing some books from under the umbrella. And then I also plan to donate to the Utah Pride Center. While I am contributing to these two organizations, I will also be contributing to other people's donation drives for the transgender readathon. So if you have an organization that you think I should contribute to, go ahead and comment and let me know where I can find those organizations. If you know of one in Utah, please let me know, and I will definitely do a spotlight video on that organization. So yeah, continuing on. Sorry, I told you, Chaos Gremlin. Editing Val here. I wanted to do this update really quickly. While the noise outside has settled a bit, you can still probably hear them yelling at each other, but the jackhammering has finally stopped, just for a moment. So, one, I wanted to add that I have already, as of now, started donating. I donated to the donation drive that the TheSapphicPheonix on TikTok is running. And then I'm still planning to donate locally, and I also have every intention, now that I have seen it on TikTok, donating to Mercury Stardust's donation drive, which won't start until the 29th, but I still want to mention it here so that you guys have as much opportunity to know about that drive as well in advance of the donation drive. They do it every year for the last 3 years. This year they are aiming for 4 million, I believe. Last year they managed 2 million, and they plan on continuing to do this drive every year in honor of Trans Remembrance Day. So I'm going to go ahead and link that below as well, along with the GoFundMe link for the TheSapphicPheonix's donation drive. And then I have a couple of books that I forgot about, one that I have not read and one that I have read a couple of times and really love. The one that I have read and love is Cheer Up, Love and Pom-Poms by Val Wise and Crystal Fraser, and I believe Oscar O. Jupiter. This is a sapphic friends to girlfriends YA graphic novel, and I love it. It covers a lot of different aspects of the trans experience for the one character, and just the social teenage experience, especially for queer folk. And it's really just good. And I don't know how to talk about it without completely spoiling it because it's so short, but it is a quick standalone. So if you are in a place where you just can't afford much, or you can't afford much time, this would be a great stand-in for a quick read. And it's just really cute, and I love it, and everyone should read it. Also, I have The Empress of Salt and Fortune by Niveau. I have not read this yet, but I believe that there is a non-binary tea monk in here, or non-binary storytelling monk in here. I'm not positive. People don't like to talk about this one or this series in general in terribly big details because of, again, how short it is. So I don't know a lot about it, but I do know that a lot of people really love it, including people who I have very similar tastes to. So this is another one that you can add to your stack. And if I love it as much as I hope I will, I'll go ahead and buy the rest of the series, which I believe there are 4 or 5. I don't know. I'll look that up and put it on the screen for you. But they're all novella. They're all about the same length as far as I know. And it's just, I'm telling you, Tor has cornered the market on queer novellas of the fantasy and sci-fi variety. Like, they've got some really good game. And so the fact that this is published by Tor gives me a lot of confidence that I'm going to love it. So anyway, update done. Back to the original recording. Next up, I have The Prince and the Dressmaker by Jen Wang. And this is a wonderful graphic novel that features a prince and his dressmaker and his alternate personality. This is honestly the sweetest story. Like, I loved it. I might end up rereading it. It's been a couple of years since I read this. All right. Okay. Moving on. Next up, I have Boy Meets Boy by David Leviathan. So this is a queer book by a queer author, and it is a queer norm kind of high school that the main character goes to, the kind of high school that I wish existed. And if it does exist, please somebody tell me. I read this when I was in high school, when I was a senior, and it was revolutionary. At the time, because I graduated in 2001, and at the time, we just didn't have books like this readily available. I found this at a Barnes & Noble, and I read it with my best friend at the park out loud. It was fantastic. And one of my favorite characters in here is a trans girl, and she is also the quarterback for the high school team. She's amazing. I need to resituate my books. Maybe I'll put them. Yeah. Okay. And next up, I have This Delicious Death by Kaale Cottingham. This was another one of my favorites from last year that I read. I really loved this. If you are looking for something at the intersection of horror and YA with a touch of romance, then this is it. We have a post-zombie apocalypse world where the cure, or the solution rather, for being a zombie is synthetic flesh, and they call it sin flesh, and it is how zombies are able to maintain their wits and their personality outside of the hunger. So it doesn't really cure you. You're still a zombie. You're still a flesh eater, but you can move about your life in a mostly normal way. And this follows 4 girls who are in their last year of high school and going to a music festival that hasn't been seen for a couple of years, not since before the zombie apocalypse. So, but then people start going feral, and they don't know why, and they have to figure it out before the news of this potential catastrophe gets out. They need to figure it out so they can present the problem with a solution before they get locked back up or neutralized or what have you, before panic sets in. So, absolutely recommend this. And next up, I have A Lesson in Vengeance. The trans portion of this is actually pretty small, so if you want to discount this as a trans read, that's fine, but I still think it deserves a mention. The trans character in this book is the sibling of the love interest in this gothic sapphic thriller. I almost want to call it a horror, but I think it definitely fits more in thriller. I know some people debate about whether or not this is dark academia. I personally think that it is. I have to admit, I was absolutely enthralled to the very end. And then the end, was not expecting. So yeah, there's that recommendation. Next up, I have What Moves the Dead by T. Kingfisher. Our main character is non-binary, and this is a very short gothic reimagining of the Fall of the House of Usher by Edgar Allan Poe. It has mushroom horror, as you can see from the cover, and it's definitely icky. I enjoyed it, though. It's good ick. Next up, I have All Systems Red by Martha Wells, and I'm using this as a stand-in for the entire series for the Murderbot Diaries. The main character is non-binary and not quite human. It is a construct made of human biology and a lot of computer and robotic parts. So this is a quick sci-fi series that you can rip through. I know I did. And you can get it in audio, ebook, or physical, whatever works best for you. This is 100,000% my favorite sci-fi series, my favorite sci-fi character, and I would love, love, love to make Murderbot my forever friend. Next up, I have Fina and Defect. They are companion novellas in the Littenverse series. I don't think it's quite a duology because I think that Nino Cipri, the author, is planning to add to it. I think. I don't know for sure. But I love these books. These are amazing. These are also good entry points to the sci-fi world because it starts in our world and then gets weird. This is definitely what I would consider weird sci-fi, interdimensional craziness, interdimensional hijinks. Yes, interdimensional hijinks. And I love it. I love it. When I read Fina, I didn't think that I could love another book within the series more, but I did when I got to Defect. So I absolutely recommend these books. Nino Cipri is a trans author or non-binary author, and these books are amazing. One of the main characters in this book is non-binary, and this is an interesting exploration of the various expressions of gender one person can have. I think that is the least spoiler way I can explain it. And in this is one of the rare instances where I would say that gender expression is in fact a spoiler if you get too specific about it. Just know that there is a lot of it, and it's fantastic, and I love it, and any more books in Littenverse, I'm here for it. Please, please, please. Nino Cipri, if you are watching this, which I sincerely doubt, but if you are watching this, please give me more Littenvard nonsense. And next up, I have Iron Widow. This is a book that I wish I could say I've already read, but I haven't because I honestly feel like this is going to be a series that I want to read back to back, and since we still haven't got the next book, I have it purchased both physically and audibly, and I have every intention of reading this, but not until I at least have the next book and find out if there's going to be a third book or anything else. I can't make myself wait an indeterminate amount of time, I think, before I get into the remaining books in this series, because this just has all of the things that I think I need in my life. Absolutely dying to read this book by a non-binary author. Okay, next up I have a couple of books, one that I have read and one that I haven't, by the same non-binary author. The one that I have read is the Tea Dragon Festival. I've read the entire Tea Dragon series. At the moment, though, this is the only physical book I have of it. I don't know if it's currently available still on Kindle Unlimited, but at the time that I read it, I read the entire series on Kindle Unlimited. Last week, I was at Barnes & Noble and I picked up The Moth Keeper by the same author, and I am super excited to read this book that I don't really know anything about, but I knew that I wanted to read it because I loved this series so much. Anything by this author is an instant grab for me. And I mean, look at this cover. Isn't it so pretty? I can't wait for it. Magic and moths. That's really all I know. And I'm here for it. Next up, I have a book that I have not read, and that is Genderqueer by Maya Kebab. Somebody tell me how I'm supposed to say that last name. And this is one of the most banned books in the country for the last few years. I think I will definitely be getting around to this one for the readathon One, because I still need to read a banned book for the month of March. And two, I've had it for over a year and I really want to go ahead and get around to reading it. And it is a graphic novel, so I can definitely get through it fairly quickly. And then next up, I have a book set like the ones by Kay O'Neill, and that is a book that I have read and a book that I have not yet read by Kason Calendar. Felix Ever After is one of the books that I consider to be required reading. I think that everybody should read this book. It is fantastic, it is beautiful, and it made me cry a couple of times, to be honest. So I love this. It's beautiful. Everyone should read it. And then the other one is Kason Calendar's middle grade book, Moonflower. I have not read it yet, but it does feature a trans child, and I am very interested in getting around to it. I have had this for longer than I like to admit. I got an uncorrected proof through Goodreads, and I just have not been in the headspace to read physically. So I will probably either pick this up as an ebook to read it, or I will go ahead and read this physically, since I've been doing more physical reading lately than I have done previously. My psoriatic arthritis is in a better place, so holding books isn't quite the chore that it used to be, and so long as I'm able to put them down and they are, in this case, light enough, it shouldn't be too difficult for me to physically read it. I have read this book several times, and that is Nimona by Andy Stevenson, and I purchased this shortly after it first came out. If you have not heard of Nimona, go and watch Netflix. Netflix has an adaptation of this that's amazing. But you should also absolutely read the comic that it was adapted from. Both are wonderful experiences on their own, and I absolutely recommend both. So read this, watch the adaptation, and joy will be yours. I'm just saying. Now, this is one of the series where I have read the first book, but I have not read the rest, so I will probably reread the first book before I go into the remaining books, and that is the Chronicles of Gideon, I believe is the series name, by Freydis Moon, and that is Heart Haunt Havoc, Wolf Willow Witch, and Saint Sorrow Sinner. I am super excited. I have no idea who the characters in this are, but I do know that you see these characters directly from this book. So I definitely am going to read them in order, although I have heard that you can read them as standalones, but they're so short. There's no reason not to just read the whole set, as far as I'm concerned. These are available on Kindle Unlimited, and but like, look at the covers. They just make my heart so freaking happy. Like, look at these colors, look at these images. These people are gorgeous, and these covers are just wonderfully haunting. All right, this is also another one of my favorite books. I'm telling you, trans writers really know how to write a good book. I have yet to pick up a book by a trans author that I did not find absolutely spellbinding, and this is amazing. Cemetery Boys by Aiden Thomas is fan-freaking-tastic. It is a standalone, but I would not mind returning to this world and maybe exploring some more characters, maybe the best friend, and maybe she can get a love interest. I don't know. I'm just throwing ideas out there. I'm just saying. Really, really, really want another book in this world, because it's just so good. although Aidan Thomas does have another series, and I do have the first book in that series, and that is the Sunbearer Trials. I know the second book has come out recently, and I do intend to pick up that second book. I also have not read the Sunbearer Trials because I heard that it ends on a cliffhanger. I'm kind of waiting to see some reviews of the second book to find out if this is another series that I hang on to until it's complete, or if I'm safe to read it now that the second book is out. And then I have the physical copy of The Witch King, but I also have the sequel, The Fae Keeper, on audiobook. I have read The Witch King, and I have not read The Fae Keeper. I just haven't got to it. My mood reading does not allow for me to make plans very well, but I try. So I may reread this and then pick up The Fae King, and it may happen during the readathon, it may not, I don't know, but that is definitely one of the goals that I have in mind for this year. This is fantastic. It's urban fantasy, but I think that it airs closer to high fantasy than urban fantasy, because they live in a world that exists beside ours, but not really within ours all that much. Yeah, I think that's probably the best way I can explain it. Basically, Wyatt is engaged to Eamon, who is the prince of the Fae, and Wyatt is a witch, and witches are second-class citizens, and people don't trust them, and they're considered dangerous, and Wyatt in particular is considered dangerous, largely due to the fact that before the events in this book, he had a bit of a magical mishap, to understate it, and at the time that happened, he fled and went to the human world, and while he was in the human world, that was when he explored his gender identity and figured out that he was Wyatt. Eamon comes to the human world after Wyatt has been there for a few years and is like, hey, you're still my fiance, and I need you to come back and stand by me. And Wyatt's like, but I'm Wyatt now, and Eamon, and this is one of my favorite things, is like, I don't care. Come on, let's go home. We'll leave it there. Reel it back in. We still have a stack to get through, Val. All right, now this book, I did a in-depth, spoiler-filled review of, and vlog of. So if you are interested in that, you are welcome to watch that video. I will either link it below or put it in the iCards. I loved this book, and I have not got the second book by Andrew Joseph White, but Hell Followed With Us is absolutely terrifying. Like, absolutely terrifying. And the characters, I love the characters in this book. I love them so much. And the main character in particular is definitely a great depiction of religious trauma and religious deconstruction. I definitely would not go into this without checking the full list of content warnings, because this one has it all. If you want trauma, this is the place you want to go. It is fantastic and horrific, and I love it. So, Hell Followed With Us by Andrew Joseph White. The other book I will put here. I may or may not pick it up by the time the readathon is happening, and if I am feeling in the right place, I may pick it up, but it's definitely after reading this, I know it's going to be a read that I have to be in the right headspace for. So I make no promises towards the readathon for reading the next book by Andrew Joseph White. All right, I am back. I took a moment to chat with my roommate when she came up for her lunch and to get some tea because Kevin is judging my choices. Tea was definitely necessary. All right, so jumping back in. So this is Ever After by F.T. Lukens. I've seen several books, including this one by F.T. Luken, on lots of different lists, recommendation lists on Instagram for the trans rights readathon. And I happen to have this on my shelf, so I pulled it and added it to the pile. I'll be honest with you, that's one of the books that I definitely picked up for the cover. I don't really know anything about it. But I will happily read it. Next up, I have one of my favorite middle grades. It's Izzy at the End of the World by K.A. Reynolds. To my knowledge, the author is not non-binary or trans, and while the main character is queer, she is not trans. However, her love interest and partner in crime is non-binary. And so that fits within the parameters that I set up for this recommendation list. Also, any opportunity I can take to recommend Izzy at the End of the World, I absolutely will. This is hands down my favorite middle grade book, maybe of all time. Basically, 1 minute Izzy is talking to her sister and her grandmother and her grandfather, and the next there is a flash of light and everyone and everything in the world has gone quiet, has disappeared. There is no life in the world aside from herself and her trusty doggo. And so she sets off on a quest to find out what happened and see if she can't save everyone. And along her journeys, she soon runs into a non-binary kid, and they decide to travel together and continue this quest to save the world. And that's all I'm going to say, but it's epic and one of the best middle grade books I've ever read. All right, next up I have a series which I have read the first 2 books that are currently out, and the third book is going to be dropping on the 26th. So just in time for the trans rights readathon. I will most definitely be digging into it as soon as I can. I think I will hold off on doing a reread of these books, but I would definitely recommend that you pick them up if you haven't already. And if you have, Feastmakers is going to be out on the 26th of March, and please join me in the glory that is completing this trilogy. I am so excited. I can't even tell you. The author is non-binary, and you definitely get a non-binary journey here and a trans side character, and it's fantastic. It is dark, it is witchy, it is sapphic, and it's grungy, and I can't tell you how much I am delighted by the main character and her girl gang. Like, I 1,000% would have made these people my friends when I was growing up if they had existed. Like, they wouldn't have had a choice. They would just be my friends. Anyhow, witchy YA sapphic with a trans author and trans rep. If I can convince anybody to read these books, please let me know that I did so that we can chat about them, because I am desperate to talk to somebody who has read these books. This is criminally underrated. This is something that I really have not seen anybody talking about on any of the book spaces that I'm a part of, and either I am moving in the wrong circles or more people need to be reading these. I'm going to err on more people need to read these, and maybe I'm in the wrong circles. Either way, please pick these up and talk to me about them. Please, please, please pick these up and talk to me about them. This is another case of I have read one book but have not read the rest. This is a trilogy. I own the first two books and have every intention of picking up the third book once I have read the second book, mostly because I'm a little unsure how I feel about one of the characters, and I can't really explain it without spoilers. But if you have read this book, then please DM me and we can chat about it. I really enjoyed this. It is a YA witchy horror story with girl gang feels, but not quite girl gang. We might get girl gang here. It almost has a gothic feel to it, but not quite. And the main character's love interest is trans or non-binary. Both. I don't know. And I believe, I could be wrong, but I believe that because of the jacket that she's wearing, that this is the love interest of the main character. And I definitely would not be surprised if I get to this book during the readathon. I also wouldn't be surprised if I don't, because I never know what I'm going to be reading next, but I am very interested in picking this series back up. And that leaves me with the remaining books that I don't own physically. One of the more recent reads that I have picked up is Most Ardently by Gabe Cole Novoa. And this is a Pride and Prejudice reimagining, historical romance where the Darcy character is pretty much Darcy, and the Bennett character is a trans guy. And so this is an trans romance. And honestly, anything Jane Austen-ish is something that I am interested in picking up. There are a wide range of fantastic and terrible retellings and reimaginings of Jane Austen stories, particularly Pride and Prejudice. But I'll be honest, even the bad ones I kind of enjoy. Kind of. At least enough to try them all out. I know that Gabe Cole Novoa has written other books. I'll put them on the screen here. I'm definitely interested in picking those up, but I'll start with what I've got, which is the most recent story, Most Ardently. And then I have read this next book. It is middle grade. I really enjoyed the series. If you like superheroes and middle grade and queer things intersecting, this is definitely a good place for you to read. This is Not Your Villain by C.B. Lee. This is the second book in a trilogy, I believe. The first book is Not Your Sidekick. And I have read both Not Your Sidekick and Not Your Villain, but I have not read the third book, and I do have it, but I haven't read it yet. I am very random with my middle grade reads. They are not frequent, but I do tend to enjoy them when I am feeling like reading them. And then there is Stay Gold by Toby McSmith. Honestly, it has been long enough that I don't remember a lot about the pitch for this book, but I do have it in and audio. And I believe that it is the story of a trans boy who has come to a new school and is trying to navigate life with his new identity and navigating who to trust with the full truth of his identity. And I know there is supposed to be a romance in there, but that is about all I can remember. I know that it had a lot of praise when it first released, but I haven't heard a ton of people talking about it since. Unfortunately, I think that happens a lot with trans reads. So I definitely still have this on my list of books to get to. And who knows, maybe it'll happen now-ish. And another author that I have read one of their books and not any of the others, but I definitely want to pick this author up, is E. Ottoman. I have read A Matter of Disagreement, and I loved it. It was fantastic. It's very short, sweet, with a touch of contention between the protagonists. It's a rivals to lovers historical romance, and it involves astronomy. And I'll leave it at that for you. It's fantastic. I loved it. The other two books that I have by E. Ottoman are The Companion and The Doctor's Discretion, both of which I am pretty equally interested in, but I'm thinking the next E. Ottoman I pick up will be The Doctor's Discretion, just because that is one that I've heard more chatter about than The Companion, although The Companion does have the benefit of being sapphic, so who knows? We'll see. There was also, I think Fated Mates did an interview of E. Ottoman, and I really enjoyed listening to their take on trans writings and publications. I think I will probably re-listen to that sometime in the next week or so, just to refresh my memory of the discussion that was had there, but I absolutely recommend checking into it. I will see about finding the link to that episode and include it in my description below. And then I have seen on many lists, Gwen and Art Are Not in Love by Lex Croucher, and I have it both in E and in audio. So I bought the audiobook using a credit for Book of the Month, and if I love it, I will probably also pick up the physical copy of it from Book of the Month. The only reason I haven't yet is because I already own it in 2 formats, and I should probably read it before I buy it in a 3rd. Probably. And then I have Sir Kaale and the Champions of Helston by Esme Smythe-Smith. I really don't know much about this one either, but I've seen it on lots of lists. I know that I purchased it when it came out on ebook, and that there has been a lot of love for it, so I will definitely be checking this one out sometime in the near future. And then there is Roller Girl by Vanessa North. So Roller Girl is the 3rd, I believe, 3rd book in the Lake Lovelace series by Vanessa North. They all feature queer relationships, but this one is the one that features the friend in the group that is a trans woman. Before she transitioned, she was married to a woman, and and it was one of those relationships where her wife definitely was the one who knew how to fix things. So the way that our protagonist meets her soon-to-be match is in the process of transitioning, she found herself divorced. It was amicable from what I remember. I believe what it came down to was that her wife was not here for a sapphic relationship, and I believe they remained friends after the divorce, but the way that the protagonist meets her match for this story is her wife was the one who really did all of the fix-it things at home, and I believe she is having some sort of a plumbing issue, maybe with a dishwasher, I think, maybe. But regardless, she ends up calling a fix-it service, and her plumber is a woman who happens to be on a roller derby team. They make friends. She invites her to join the roller derby team. She builds friendships there as well, and finds a better connection with her body through the process of the roller derby, if I remember right. And the friendship with this woman turns into love. So it is a recent friends to lovers kind of romance. So if you aren't very big into a friends to lover romance, this may not work for you, but it might, simply because they don't have a long-standing friendship before they become lovers. I know there's some other complications there, but I can't remember what they are. It's been too long. I definitely need to pick this book back up. But I do remember that it is sweet. It is a little bit slow burn, but it's a short book, so the slow burn is not long-lived. It is a series in general that I like to come back to every now and then. I think it may have even been my first trans protagonist in a romance that I ever read. Maybe? I don't know. I can't remember. It's been too long. All right, moving on. So, next up I have A Lot's Away by Darcy Little Badger. I have not read this one yet, but I do have it on my e-reader. I don't really remember much about the story. I know that it features a non-binary character. I believe it is an indigenous author, and I believe that it is YA or maybe middle grade. I know it's definitely a younger reader kind of book, and I know that a lot of people really loved it. However, it does fall more in the literary fiction side of things, and that is probably why it's still on my TBR. I do have an interest in reading it. I just read literary fiction sparingly. So it is on my list. It's on my very, very short list of literary fiction that I am interested in getting to. I just can't predict exactly when the mood for something literary will come up. But when it does, this is definitely on my list of considerations. Then I have another Freydis Moon book. It's called Three Kings. I believe it is polyamorous, and I think it may involve Mpreg by magical means, not Omegaverse means. And I believe there is either a Selkie or a merman involved. I'm not sure, but it is short, and I have heard lots of praise for it, and it's Freydis Moon, so I will definitely be reading it. And then last up, I have another Case and Callender book, and this is kind of an epic love story by Case and Callender. I believe this is one of their earlier books. I can't remember. I'm pretty sure it's one of their earlier books. I've had it for a while, and I just haven't gotten around to it yet. I 100% will be reading this book at some time in the future. I don't really know anything about it. I know that it's contemporary. I know that it's YA. I know that our protagonists are people of color, BIPOC people of color, that it's an story. I think that it might be friends to lovers. It's either friends to lovers or maybe a new school romance? I don't know. This is also probably why I haven't picked it up yet, because I don't have a clear picture in my head about what this one is about. I picked it up because it was Case and Calendar, and it was on I believe, a BookBub deal, and anything by Case and Calendar I'm absolutely snatching. Just immediately. I will be posting updates on my TikTok, Instagram, Threads, and here on YouTube. Probably we'll be doing some shorts and maybe do a vlog. Probably do a vlog. Happy reading. I hope to interact with you guys through the readathon, and I am excited to get into some of these books that I haven't read yet. I hope that you are having a wonderful March. If your March is more chaotic like mine, then I hope that you are dealing with it well. If you are not, you are welcome to chat about it with me in my DMs or in the comments. And I'll see you next video. Happy reading. Stars shining bright above you. Night breezes seem to whisper. And I missed
Just Kevin.
just Kevin, not you. I know that Gabe Cole Navarro, she you're not sorry. I can see how much you're not sorry.
Sorry, not sorry. Well, I personally only have so much time. So,
I'm aware. I'm taking a moment to have some tea while you make the beep beep beeps.
unfortunately, I must be beep.
What's that song? That beep beep song? It's like a kid's song?
The Cadillac song?
Maybe. And the car goes beep beep?
Goes beep, beep, beep.
Yes.
Yeah.